Assalamu alaikum. Teaching language through literature, assessment, and skills. Integrating literary pedagogy with valid and reliable language assessment. Reading, writing, and comprehension. Reading comprehension and interpretation, basic text interpretation. Agenda. Literature's role and pedagogical models, stylistics and teaching poetry, foundations of language assessment, assessing listening and speaking skills, authenticity and practical task design. Literature in language education. Integrating literature into English language teaching ELT moves beyond basic linguistic input, serving as a catalyst for significant development. It offers language enrichment through authentic texts, complex syntax, and diverse vocabulary. Furthermore, it provides cultural enrichment by exposing learners to socio-historical contexts and worldviews. Finally, it fosters personal growth by engaging critical thinking and encouraging learners to connect text to their own lives. Literature creates a rich macro context often absent in textbooks, enhancing stylistic variation and semiotic depth. Models of literature teaching. Cultural model. This traditional approach views literature as a primary source of information about the target culture. The emphasis is on the history, biography, and the established canon of literary works. Language model. Literature serves as a vehicle for explicit grammar and vocabulary practice. In this framework, the literary text is primarily a resource for linguistic development rather than an end in itself. Personal growth model. This model encourages students to engage with the text both emotionally and intellectually. It promotes a dynamic interaction between the reader and the text, fostering a love for reading while developing essential critical literary skills. Stylistics and language awareness. Linguistic features. Analysis of deviant syntax, unconventional collocation, and lexical choice reveals the distinctiveness of literary texts. Functional interpretation. This process connects specific linguistic features to the author's intended effect of overarching theme. Pedagogical benefit. Stylistic significantly enhances language awareness by illustrating how particular grammar structure modify tone and perspective. Teaching poetry, unique hurdles, syntactic displacement. Students encounter reordered SVO pattern, subject verb object pattern, often manipulated for rhyme or meter, challenging conventional sentence structure understanding. Lexical ambiguity. Poetry frequently employs dense polysemy, multiple meanings, and archaic vocabulary, making precise word interpretation difficult. Metaphorical reasoning, decoding non-literal meaning and understanding cultural symbols are crucial, demanding advanced inferential skills from learners. Phonological sensitivity. Learners must develop an awareness of subtle rhythm, stretch, and intonation patterns to fully appreciate the poem's sonic qualities. Scaffolding poetry for learners. Activate prior knowledge. Activate schemata via thematic discussion of visual prompts related to the poem's core emotion to reduce the affective filter. Guide discovery. Utilize jigsaw reading or prose activities where students predict missing words based on rhyme or context, fostering active engagement. Analyze linguistic features. Identify specific poetic devices, example, alliteration, personification, and analyze their impact on the poem's mood and meaning. Encourage creative response. Students perform the poem or write a parallel poem using the same structure but different content, defining comprehension and expression. Reader response versus new criticism. This table outlines the key differences between two dominant approaches to literary discussion: new criticism and reader response. Feature: new criticism, reader response. Focus: the text itself as a closed system. The interaction between reader and text, meaning objective, resides within the words, subjective, created during the reading act. Role of student: detective looking for correct meaning, active participant bringing prior experience. Goal: teaching mastery of literary devices, personal engagement, and interpretation. Introduction to assessment. Assessment systematically gathers, interprets, and acts on student learning data. Distinct from mere testing, it encompasses both quantitative measurement and quantitative evaluation. The key is ensuring the process effectively measuring intended learning and benefit the student. Assessment validity and assessment reliability. Assessment validity: the extent to which an assessment accurately measures its intended construct. For literature, this means evaluating literary competence, not merely grammar. Key types include content, coverage of domain, criterion, correlation with external criteria, and construct measures theoretical constructs validity. Assessment reliability: the consistency of scores produced by an assessment across different administrations or raters. A reliable test yields similar results for the same student under comparable conditions. This necessitates standardized rubrics and unambiguous instructions to minimize measurement error. Practicality and washback in assessment. Practicality: this concept refers to the relationship between available resources, example time, many personnel and the demands of an assessment. For example, an oral interview of 500 students, while potentially valid, might lack practically due to resource constraints. Washback effect. This describes the impact of testing on teaching and learning practices. Positive washback encourages effective pedagogical approaches such as assessing poetry through creative writing. Conversely, negatively washback leads to detrimental teaching practices like an overemphasis on teaching to the test. Formative assessment, summative assessment. Formative assessment is for learning, providing ongoing informal feedback to inform and adjust instructional strategies. It's a continuous process that helps both students and instructors identify areas for improvements during the learning cycle. Examples include classroom observations, peer reviews of poetry draft, and exit tickets. Summative assessments. Summative assessment is of learning, designed to evaluate cumulative learning at the end of an instructional period or cycle. It typically results in a final grade or certification. Reflective mastery of content. Examples include final exams, term papers on literary analysis, and standardized proficiency tests. Assessing listening. Core constructs. Bottom-up process. Students identify fundamental linguistic units like phonemes, word boundaries, and grammatical markers in spoken language. Top-down process. Listeners utilize existing background knowledge schemata to anticipate meaning and infer the speaker's intentions. Discriminative listening. This involves the crucial ability to distinguish between acoustically similar sounds, often tested with minimal fears. Evaluative listening. Learners judge the speaker's underlying bias, emotional state, or overall credibility within the discourse. Listening assessment task types. Intensive. Recognizing phonological or morphological elements such as circle the word you hear. Responsive. Answering a simple questions or following a command. Selective. Listening for specific information. Example, taking down a phone number from a recording. Extensive. Understanding the overall gist of a long lecture or story. Assessing speaking complexity factors. Grammatical competence. This involves the mastery of syntax and morphology for accurate language production. Discourse competence focuses on the ability to achieve cohesion and coherence across extended spoken interactions. Sociolinguistic competence pertains to using appropriate register and politeness strategies based on social context. Strategic competence encompasses the development of repair strategies such as paraphrasing when communication challenges arise. The oral proficiency interview. Warm-up phase. Establish rapport and reduce test taker anxiety, creating a conducive environment for the assessment. Conduct level checks. Identify the test takers' comfortable floor of linguistic ability to gauge their baseline performance. Implement proofs. Challenge the test taker to their ceiling by increasing linguistic demands until they begin to struggle revealing their upper limits. Wind down. Return to a comfortable conversational level to conclude the assessment on a positive note, minimizing stress. Analytical rubrics coding speaking. To ensure reliability, speaking should be graded using an analytical rubric rather than a single holistic score, providing structured feedback as discussed for interviews. Criterion: 1 low, 3 mid, 5 high. Fluency: frequent long pauses, generally smooth, effortless native like. Pronunciation: hard to understand, some errors, intelligible, clear, correct stress. Vocabulary: very limited, adequate for topic, precise and varied. Accuracy: many basic words, some complex errors, almost error free. Authenticity in skill assessment. For both listening and speaking, authenticity is key to valid assessment. This involves using material and scenarios that closely resemble real-world language use. Authentic listening utilizes recordings with background noise, overlapping speech, and natural hesitations instead of studio clean audio. Authentic speaking engages students in real-world scenarios like a job interview, a debate, or a literary circle discussions, moving beyond simple sentence recitations. A teacher notices that her students are only studying the grammar points they know will be on the final exam, neglecting their speaking practice. This is an example of what? Negative washback, content validity, formative evaluation, high risk. Okay, think. It is negative washback. Okay. Discuss with a partner. How valid and practical is this oral reading assessment task for a class of 30? Consider the task alignment with teaching poems and assessing speaking and its logistical feasibility. Summary of key principles. Literature serves as a vital resources for fostering linguistic proficiency, cultural understanding, and personal growth in learners. Poetry instruction necessitates targeted scaffolding to effectively manage its inherent complexities and enhance student engagement. Assessment design must prioritize validity, reliability, and practicality, striving to achieve beneficial washback on learning. Listening or speaking assessments require an emphasis on authentic communication tasks supported by comprehensive rubrics to ensure equitable evaluation. Conclusion. Literature serves as a macro context for linguistic, cultural, and Personal growth via cultural language and personal models. Language poetry. Teaching poetry requires scaffolding addressing syntactic displacement and lexical ambiguity enhanced by reader response and new criticism. Assessment validity, reliability, practicality, and washback are crucial for effective diagnostic, placement, achievement, and proficiency measures.